The soul of OMA is the earliest period of reproduced sound, motion picture equipment, the loudspeakers and amplifiers from the 1920s and 1930s that were developed by Western Electric and especially RCA, also by James Lansing. This was a time when the triode tubes provided very little power, theaters were large, the demand on power was very great, and loudspeakers had to be incredibly efficient. And so the development of the horn loudspeakers of that period represent an achievement, sonically speaking, that really has never been equaled. And it's our challenge to take that DNA and to convert it into things that we can make today: horn-loaded loudspeakers, lower powered tube, triode tube electronics, and create sound of that caliber, but at the same time with a design and a build quality that makes you want to have them in your house even when they're not playing. OMA's design philosophy is very simple. It's a bit like the Hippocratic Oath. It's do no harm. In other words, we design everything from an acoustic standpoint first. That means that the speakers are all designed from the horn out and down. The horn is something that physics gives us very strict parameters as to how big the mouth of the horn must be, the throat, the distance, the flare rate. We only make conical horn loudspeakers. We're actually the only high-end company that makes conical flare loudspeakers, and we are also the only company ever in high-end to make conical loudspeakers. What that means with a conical speaker is the walls are straight-sided. So you'll see that we have round horns, we have horns that look oval, they're actually a stadium shape, we have squarish horns. They are all conical. You can lay a ruler flat along the side walls of all these horns. That's very important because conicals behave completely differently than curved horns. So all other horns are curved, whether they're exponential or hyperbolic or parabolic or tractrix, Leclerc, Kugelhorn, spherical horns, they're all curved. So we start with conical horns. We only use conical horns. We develop the horns first to do what they need to do in terms of the passband the speaker has to do. And then we try and ask ourselves, how can we make this look like something that you want to own? How are we going to make it? Which requires looking at the materials, looking at the structure of the materials, which is going to dictate how it's made. So in the end, it's very much form follows function, because the larger horns are made out of wood. We can't make them out of cast metal. They would be too big. The smaller horns we wouldn't want to make out of wood because they would be not wise to make them out of wood, and that's not necessary for what they have to do either. So it's a very complex equation that's asking, what is the thing supposed to do? How can we make it? And ultimately, how can we make it so it's beautiful and then not screw the sound up? And that can be very, very complex at times. That's super easy. And there should be only one answer to that question for everybody, which is natural, lifelike sound. You don't want sound with a signature. Today, I find that a lot of loudspeakers and components have what I call the happy face, which is an elevated boosted bass, an elevated boosted high end, and a scooped out mid-range. And of course the mid-range is where you want to be. That's where our ears are most acute and where we are most sensitive. In fact, one problem with the audiophile understanding of what sound should look like from a frequency response standpoint is this misnomer that the flat line, like a dead person's EKG, is the correct frequency response for a loudspeaker. And that's not true at all. If you look at Harry Olson's Elements of Acoustical Engineering, which was the textbook for most of the 20th century, you'll see that from a psychoacoustic standpoint, the way we hear, right? So our hearing is not microphones hooked up to a computer. Our ears in our brain are an active system, and a loudspeaker should look, its response should look like this, which is a shallow saddle shape, and that provides the most correct, natural, and lifelike sound. And that's what we're aiming for. The other thing, though, which isn't in the amplitude domain, which I'd like to just mention, and that's something that we're concentrated on, and I never hear it discussed in the high end, not in the magazines, not in talks, is the time domain. And that is the accuracy of a speaker and of the audio system in time. So if you have inefficient loudspeakers where transducers or woofers, for example, are moving a great deal to provide the SPL required, they will never be able to stop on a dime, as we say in English. You know, there's overshoot, and you have smearing in time of the music. And this is really very negative to properly be able to hear music. And with high efficiency speakers, and especially with horns, you have very, very correct time domain behavior. You have also a preservation of the microdynamics and details, which are what makes music come alive and sound real. So these are things where you might say that the OMA approach is quite different, and it's also why we make the electronics and even the turntables, because without that control over all the elements of the signal chain, we find that we can't get to the result which we want, which is a kind of sound which, I don't know, that I can only invite you to experience yourself. I can't possibly describe what that sound would be. If the question is what is the most exciting product that we're working on, and we've been working on a few for years. Nothing at OMA comes quickly or easily. I wish it did. There's actually two things. One is a turntable, which is really has been the challenge is what is the absolute state of the art, and then going way past that. And I'm very happy and proud that after 5.5 years of work, of continuous work, that we're actually at a stage where we have something up and playing in our showroom, and it's pretty much identical to what we're going to go into production with. We need to have a stand for it. We're working on a proprietary tone arming cartridge that goes with it. It'll be an ensemble piece, but it's here now, and it certainly hasn't disappointed me or anybody that's heard it. The other thing, though, is the new company, Fleetwod Sound Company, which is a response to people saying, well, OMA is fantastic and it's beautiful and love the way it's made, and I wish someday I could afford that, because it's expensive, because of, the nature of the materials that we use, the fabrication. And we launched a new company, Fleetwod Sound Company, only a few weeks ago, which is all about making that level of quality accessible to a much larger audience, making products that are smaller, that are much less expensive, but that are still basically heirloom level products that you would give to your children or your grandchildren. And that's not a joke. In a world where everything is disposable, I think it's about time that we start to think about making things that you don't throw away, that are so well made and so well engineered and designed and give you so much happiness that the idea of getting rid of them is preposterous. With our new daughter company, Fleetwod Sound, we're gonna have a product that is really, I hope, what everyone wants, whether they even know that they want. You can't want something if you don't know it exists. And what we have is a one box system that's horn loaded, that is using only professional transducers, like with the larger speakers, that's ultra high efficiency, that you can whip out your phone and play Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, any analog source, digital input, and that is reasonably priced, under $10,000, and that's beautiful. And it's made in Pennsylvania. No plastic, all wood, metal, steel. That I'm very excited about, because that's a product that, to my knowledge, doesn't exist on the market today. Also, the work that we're doing with some major cultural institutions, like Lincoln Center, Kennedy Center, towards building large-scale versions of the type of equipment that we've been making so far for individuals or companies, to have public presentations of recorded music records in such a way that a much larger group of people, for me, having more people understand how amazing vinyl and analog and just great music is, that's the most interesting thing. Anything that we can do to further that's where we're directed at the present time.